Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Practical Cannabis Podcast. My name is Athena Lumsden, and today's topic is how do we tell the difference between a dysfunctional ECS and a bad day? So check out pages 4 to 5 in my Practical Cannabis Guidebook, but don't worry if you don't have the book, you don't need it to enjoy the podcast. And just a heads up that I am a high-dose medical cannabis patient. I can speak, I swear, guys. Medical cannabis patient. Okay, so I will be using my prescription during this podcast. I have a complement of whatever I need handy. It usually includes my lip balm, my lotion, my cough drops, a smokable, my infused tea, my patches. I'm wearing 4 patches today. They are my favorite. And the herb that is in my smokable is mystery plant number 6 from my medical grow. And they're mystery plants because I used the wrong kind of labels and we lost our, in the rain, we lost our labels. So at least I can tell what does what based on smell, and it's treating me well. So we're going to be good for that. And if you want to use the products that I am using, grab the guidebook because it's got the recipes. What we're going to be covering specifically today is what the endocannabinoid system does, how we can tell when it's asking for support, the medical terminology for a dysfunctional ECS, the signs and symptoms of a dysfunctional ECS, and finally, what you can do to support your ECS, both with and without cannabis. And just a really quick reminder that while I am a great researcher and problem solver, I am not a doctor. And this is not medical advice. It is simply information that I believe we all have a right to know. And if you feel like it resonates with your personal health concerns or with someone that you know and love, then I strongly recommend you speak with your doctor about whether or not medical cannabis is right for you. Okay, so what the endocannabinoid system does. It handles homeostasis, which is also known as optimal functioning of our entire body. The major functions that the endocannabinoid system regulates are learning, memory, emotional processing, sleep, temperature control, pain control, inflammatory response, immune response, and eating. It does all of this by producing and delivering the endocannabinoids AEA and 2-AG. And if you want more information on the basic function of the ECS, please follow the link into the description and check out my previous episode. Okay, and so we've got an ECS. How do we know that it's actually asking for support? Because the tricky thing about an ECS is that when it's working properly, you don't even feel it, you don't even know it's there, you just feel normal. So not only is it an invisible condition when it isn't working right, you tend to gaslight yourself about whether or not what you're feeling is even real. Now, it is very possible for you to start your life with a healthy ECS only to have it become disabled due to age, circumstances, injuries, conditions, stressors. We like to think our bodies are super solid, but sometimes things don't always work the way we want them to, right? But it's not to worry about whether or not to tell whether it's talking to you or not, because we're not trained to talk to ourselves about it, because usually it works, right? But our bodies talk to us every day anyway. So to teach you how to listen to your endocannabinoid system, I'm going to talk about how you're already listening to your body via your other heavy-duty needs. See, your body needs food, it needs water, and it needs air. But it also needs cannabinoids. Okay, so when we're thinking about this, what is the difference between being normal and then being hungry and then starving? The difference between normal, healthy, to being a little thirsty, to being parched. I'm actually going to have some tea. What's the difference between being normal to being in a stuffy room to suffocating. So if you're doing what you're supposed to be doing, you're eating healthy and you're going to the doctor and you're exercising and you're getting your social time in and you're taking your medication, you're checking all the boxes, but your soul still feels like it's funneling through a black hole through your soul. It's really hard to describe, but if you feel like there are alarms going off through every fiber of your being and things are just not okay, even though you look okay and you sound okay and you're doing all those boxes, that might be your ECS trying to talk to you, telling you that things are not okay. But it's such an early stage that the systems haven't actually started breaking down yet. It's just a warning sign. Okay, so from here we go to the medical terminology around a dysfunctional ECS. Now, you might be happy to know, because I know I sure was, that there is an actual name for this state. It's called clinical endocannabinoid deficiency, and CED for short. And CED happens when you don't have enough cannabinoid receptors, you're producing an overabundance of metabolic enzymes, you're not making enough endocannabinoids in the first place, or there's not enough action happening between your endocannabinoids and your cannabinoid receptors. So basically, you don't have enough places for the cannabinoids to land, you are making too many things that burn through what you provide, you're not making enough of the supply in the first place, or even if you're making enough of the receptors and enough of the cannabinoids, they're not talking to each other. Okay. So what are the signs and symptoms of CED? And fair warning, this list is long and you're going to want to hear it, but if you don't have a lot of time or you just like a sum up, lack of homeostasis, things don't work right even when caring for yourself well, but I'm going to break it down. Okay, we're starting with improper regulation of pain. We're talking about small pains can hurt just as much as large ones, or conversely, you don't register the pain as it's expected, and either way that your body responds in the first place, the pain is going to linger long after the body's actually healed. For example, a person who gets nicked while cooking, they might either feel like a flaming saber went through their hand, or they're not even going to notice the damage until the blood makes a mess in their stuff. But either way, they're likely to feel the ache in their hand for far longer than it takes for their flesh to do the actual healing. Like the scar will be old and faded, and they will still feel that ache, right? Improper regulation of digestion is up next, with both behavioral and physical aspects running. Food jags, diet maintenance issues, weight issues, hunger dysregulation, nausea, bowel issues, and so on and so on. Our guts are reliant on cannabinoids very, very heavily, and if it doesn't have them, it is not okay. From there, it's improper regulation of sleep. You can't sleep when you want to, you can't get up when you want to, your sleep isn't restful, you can't stay asleep all night, and napping is problematic. Again, the high sign here is that your body isn't doing what it's supposed to be doing, like just dysregulation. We have improper, too much talking. Makes my tongue trip. Okay, from there we go to improper regulation of mood. Any stress is all stress, overwhelm is common, and mood swings are the norm. Or conversely, you have a complete lack of emotional response to the point where it interferes with your life. And we're not just talking about like quiet or stoic, we're talking about shut down completely. Improper regulation of mental acuity, memory, focus, executive function, and task switching are all strongly affected by the lack of cannabinoids. These being dysregulated can frequently look like being lazy or contrary from the outside, while the person suffering swears they are trying to be responsible and is in distress about lack of the ability to move forward. From here, we have improper regulation of stimuli. This is a huge one in my life personally. You notice either everything or nothing. Old memories are just as vivid as today, while today is as foggy as 20 years ago should be. Your senses are either overwhelmed or shut down. We're talking smell, sight, touch, hearing, and taste are all affected here. With this kind of dysregulation, you may display behaviors that seem odd, but to you are just simply accommodations to make your life more functional around those sensory needs, like wearing shades inside or after dark, avoiding the soap aisle at the store because the smells hurt your head, eating bland food, avoiding touching due to sensitivity or finding sounds painful, as well as the opposite end of the spectrum, including behaviors like staring at bright objects for too long, being overly pungent without noticing, a preference for overspiced or strongly flavored foods, a tendency to break things from gripping them too hard, or music at ear-damaging volumes is considered soothing and mellow. Okay, so again, when the stimuli is taken in and it should be pleasant but it hurts, or it should be calm but it's overwhelming, this is a dysregulation of the intake of that stimuli. And that is directly connected to a functioning ECS. Almost there, last two. We have improper regulation of temperature control. This is where your body temperature has very little to do with the environment, and you're either too hot or you're too cold, and it might flip-flop without notice. But like I said, very little to do with the ambient temperature in the room and very much to do with your personal core temperature. Last but not least, improper regulation of pharmaceuticals, drugs, or alcohol. You're either excessively sensitive or highly resistant, but either way, they never really do what they're supposed to do. And if you were remembering, or you were in part of the last episode where I go over the house metaphor, if every function your body has a room and every room is locked, that means you also have a medication processing and delivery room. And if your medication processing and delivery room is locked, then the medications just get delivered to the door, and the poor delivery guy tries to grind them up and shove them in around the door frame or through the keyhole. And for a little while, you might get a little bit of medication processed and a little bit recovered. But anybody who's ever dealt with jamming powders into a small space knows, eventually it packs up and it seals up. And it means that that medication isn't getting through anymore. And this is when we end up with those situations where we're taking more and more medication, higher and higher doses. It feels like it's helping for a little while, and then it just doesn't, and then it fades off. And it becomes very, very problematic. I know personally, before I got my cannabis prescription, I was taking about 50 to 60 pills a day, all prescribed. And I was taking them the way they were prescribed. And I was not nearly as happy, healthy, or functional as I am right now because I truly believe they were not being processed appropriately. I was not okay, and I'm much, much happier with my current setup. But it was directly connected. The fact that those weren't working was directly connected to the fact that my body isn't capable of processing those things without the cannabinoids to unlock that door and let the medication get into the medication processing and delivery room. Oh, and a quick warning. This is part of why Cannabis Plus medications can be dangerous. It boosts the effectiveness because it lets them in. If you have any medications that you are taking that could interact in a bad way, if you have too much, you make sure that you talk to your doctor about whether this is right for you or if there's a balance that can be struck. right? Be careful with yourself. You deserve to be cared for. But yeah, all of that wraps up into a lack of homeostasis, of optimal functioning just not happening. So things aren't working right, even when you're taking care of yourself. So does this mean, I talked for a long time there about the large list of what cannabinoids are required for, and I really don't think that's complete. It really does affect everything that your body does. So does that mean that I'm trying to tell you that cannabis fixes everything? And the answer is no. Of course not. Okay? Cannabis does not fix. All cannabis does is supplement our endocannabinoids with phytocannabinoids so that our bodies can work the way that they're supposed to work in the first place. So it should be very clear that without cannabinoids available, our bodies can't do anything to maintain themselves, let alone fight off injury, illness, or environmental issues. This is all just basic structural stuff. If our ECS is out of commission, our entire body goes into a state of deprivation that will slowly get worse as time goes on. And when you're in this state, there's very little hope that pills or therapy or exercise or support from loved ones will actually be enough to matter in the end. Deprivation is deprivation, and it doesn't matter whether or not it's calories or hydration or suffocation or cannabinoid based. And while it might take a lot longer for us to identify cannabinoid based starvation, it is still just as deadly. Okay, so we need to take care of ourselves. We need to take care of our ECSs because nothing else works if we don't have this. So what can we do to support our ECS? Well, supporting it is actually easier than you think, but it's nothing new because as human beings, we've been trying to support this system since the beginning of human beings, and we just didn't know its name. So the same things that we think of as basic self-care is also basic care for the ECS. So my personal favorite is to supplement your diet with phytocannabinoids. Cannabis has a lot of phytocannabinoids in it, a huge variety. They aren't as good as our endocannabinoids, but they supplement very, very well. And because there are so many of them, your personal fit can be found and applied specifically so that your life is fitting your needs rather than just being stuck. From there, eat a well-balanced diet. It includes lots and lots of healthy fats, including prebiotics and probiotics, because your gut is very important, like I said earlier. Consume foods that are rich in beta-carophylline, as it also stimulates your CB2 receptors. They're found in dark spices, usually like black pepper, cinnamon, nutmeg. And exercise frequently, get a good night's rest, get social. Okay, all the things that are good for you as a human being are good for you for your ECS, and it's that way for a reason. Okay, so that's it. Yeah, I think that's it for today. Thank you so much for joining me, and I can't wait for next time where we're going to go over the differences between using cannabis to treat an illness or an injury versus an underproductive ECS. And if you want to learn more, you can check out my website at athenalumsden.com. And if you like what you heard today, I invite you to subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts. I'll be back with a new installment soon, and until next time, I hope that you get to experience the freedoms that come from a fully supported endocannabinoid system.